Today, one of the most important features of the dollar is that it is one of the most difficult currencies to counterfeit in the world, with a very low success rate for counterfeiters. This means that no matter how hard you try, it is almost impossible to counterfeit this currency without being detected. The simplest inspection place in the world can detect the counterfeit currency, because for more than 120 years and up to today, more than 100 methods of protection for the dollar have been developed, so that it is one of the most difficult currencies to counterfeit or hack. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of the only person who managed to reach a very dangerous level in counterfeiting US dollars. The first thing we need to know before we begin is that the dollar is the strongest monetary system in circulation in the world. The volume of dollars circulating globally is approximately $2 trillion in cash, and this amount is distributed among individuals and banks in the markets. In addition to this, hundreds of countries use the dollar as their reserve currency, which explains why this paper was designed to be one of the most difficult currencies on Earth to counterfeit. We need to understand the security features that distinguish the dollar bill. First, you need to know that this paper is not just any piece of paper. It's actually a fabric made of 75% cotton and 25% linen. Secondly, it features a watermark embedded within the fibers themselves in a very complex way. Thirdly, it has a security thread that glows under ultraviolet light and color-changing ink that shifts from copper to green depending on the viewing angle. Fourthly, it uses microprinting at fractions of a millimeter in size. Fifthly, it has raised tactile patterns. Sixthly, each sheet has a serial number that allows for tracking. And finally, it features continuous, periodic design updates. Therefore, after all this talk, we understand that any minor flaw in one of these elements is immediately detected. And that is why, over more than a century, thousands of forgery attempts have failed, some of which were orchestrated by countries with the aim of casting doubt on the dollar and ending American hegemony over global markets. Yet they failed, except with one person only. This person did something unexpected. He said, "Why imitate the system from the outside? Let me understand the dollar printing system from the inside." And that's how our story began in November 2008. Specifically, in a small rented apartment on the outskirts of Montreal, Canada, a man sat with an old $20 bill in front of him. He was examining it with a magnifying glass, taking notes and conducting tests. Guess how long he spent studying it? He spent 47 consecutive days studying the same bill. During this period, he studied every detail: the intricate microprinting on the side of President Andrew Jackson's collar, the color-changing design, the security thread, the precise spacing between the elements. But the real problem wasn't the printing or the ink. The problem was the dollar bill itself. As we mentioned, it's not paper, but fabric made of 75% cotton and 25% linen. This material is manufactured by a single leading company, Crane Currency, which has specialized in this field since the 19th century. Our protagonist, Frank Bourassa, knew this. He knew that all the counterfeiters before him had failed because of the paper, not the printing. So he decided not to counterfeit paper, but to create it. Frank spent 47 days observing and compiled remarkably detailed observations, including the size and arrangement of the microletters, the angles of color changes, and the location of the security thread. The surprising thing is that Frank wasn't a doctor or an engineer, but a young Canadian man from Trois-Rivières who had dropped out of school early and worked illegally. He possessed two key qualities: exceptional patience and keen observational skills. He reached a point where he understood that the only solution was to obtain paper similar to banknote paper. This type of paper is used by central banks worldwide and is manufactured in specialized factories in Europe. Between December 2008 and January 2009, he began contacting these factories using aliases, the most prominent of which was Jackson Maxwell, claiming to be a purchasing manager for an investment firm. After numerous attempts, a Swiss company agreed to negotiate with him. He began requesting specifications gradually: 75% cotton and 25% linen, chemical treatment, a watermark, then a security thread. And strangely enough, it was approved. About 7 months later, he requested a small sample, but it was enough to print nearly $250 million worth of paper, and the shipment arrived in Montreal. He made sure he wasn't being watched, then opened the box, and the result was astonishing. Paper almost identical to the original. Then he began the second phase. He bought equipment, rented a secluded space, and hired a printing expert at a cost of $300,000. Initially, the results were very poor, but after 3 months of experimentation, he succeeded in producing a near-perfect $20 bill. This type is called the super dollar or super note. He continued printing approximately $250 million in counterfeit currency, but instead of distributing it himself, he sold it to dealers at 30 cents per note. Between 2010 and 2012, tens of millions of these bills circulated, generating profits estimated at $10 to $15 million in real currency. However, the error came from a distributor who duplicated the same serial number, leading to the exposure of the scheme at a bank in Las Vegas. At this point, the United States Secret Service intervened and launched an investigation in cooperation with Canadian police. On May 14, 2012, Frank was caught in a sting operation involving a fake purchase and arrested along with his entire network. The equipment was seized and more than 14 people were arrested, but less than 2% of the money was recovered. At this point, Frank made an offer. He would hand over all the money in exchange for dropping the charges. After 6 weeks of negotiations, an agreement was reached in January 2014. He handed over the money and received a reduced sentence. Today, he works as a consultant for security companies specializing in combating counterfeiting. The man who printed hundreds of millions is now teaching governments how to stop people like him.